Hello, my name is Amy Heyse, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how to draw Saint Elizabeth of Hungary. We celebrate her feast day on November 17th, and I'm going to show you how to draw her using simple lines and simple shapes. For this tutorial, all you need is a piece of paper, a pencil, and something to color with. As always, feel free to make any changes to your drawing, pause the video, fast forward. I also have chapters for all of the different sections. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to work on Saint Elizabeth's head. So I did a simple oval shape to create the shape of her head near the top of my paper. So I'm going to take my pencil and starting near the top, I'm going to start to sketch out my oval shape. You can make your head as big or as small as you'd like. And as always, like I said, feel free to make any changes. The point is to have fun, practice, and connect to God. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to work on her neck. So at the bottom of her head, you're going to put one line on the left side, one line on the right side, and you're going to connect them together with a curve, kind of like a smile. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to be working on her shoulders. So the first part of her shoulders, you're going to start where her neck connects to her head, and you're going to draw a little downwards diagonal line on the left side and on the right side. For the top part of her little cape, we're going to do a line that comes at a downward angle on this left side of the paper. So you're just going to add another line that comes downwards for that first arm over on the left side. And we're going to do a slightly longer line over on this right side for the hand that is stretched out. So it's not a lot longer, just a little bit longer, something kind of like this. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to be putting in her little hands. So we're going to start over here with this hand on the left side that's kind of clenching onto the fabric of her cape. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw a little sideways oval shape, and these are going to be for the fingers on the tallest part of her hand that are wrapped around that cape, like this. And we're going to put a little curve on this right side of that oval shape, and that is going to create the little thumb holding onto her cape. We're going to add 3 lines to separate this bigger oval into the fingers that we see curled up. So you can put one little line in the middle of that oval shape, and then you can put one more line on each side, and that separates that part of her hand into those 4 little knuckles that we see. The other hand is holding this little bread loaf, bread roll. So over here on this side of our paper, I want you to draw a little circle. And that is going to be for the bread that she's holding out. And once that little circle is drawn out, I want you to draw an X inside. That's kind of like where the roll was split, like so. We can see a little bit of her thumb and her tall fingers kind of sticking out past that bread roll. So in our drawing, over here on this right side, I'm going to put a little U shape for the thumb, and underneath the roll, I'm going to put a bigger U shape for those tall fingers. And I am also going to add some extra lines to separate this hand into the smaller fingers, kind of like this. The next thing that we're going to work on is we're going to put in the top part of her cape. So it starts at the middle of her neck, and these lines kind of curve downwards. So you're going to find the middle of your St. Elizabeth's neck, and you're going to do one line that curves down and towards the left side hand. And then you're going to do a longer curve that comes down and kind of connects where that hand holding the roll is. We're going to continue working on the cape. We're going to do her waist, these flowers a little bit later, but for now, we're going to put a curved line here for the part of her cape that is holding the roses. So you're going to do kind of like a big smile line. So it's going to come down from her hand, and then it's going to swoop over near the hand that's holding the bread roll. We're going to do a swoop, kind of like the curve of a parenthesis, and it's going to go for this longest part of her cape that's underneath the roll. So starting at that hand, you're going to create a line that swoops inwards towards her body, but then gradually curves outwards for as long as you want that cape and the bottom of her dress to be. So I'm adjusting the curve of mine just a little bit, but I think this is a pretty good length for my St. Elizabeth. And I can always go back and erase any lines that I changed or no longer want. And it's okay if your drawing looks a little bit different than mine. We're going to do another curved line here for this side of the cape on this left side. It's much shorter. It kind of stops about halfway. So by her hand, I'm going to do a slightly curved line that comes down and stops about half the length of my first line. I want to connect this line to this line in a shallow curve. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to swoop my pencil stroke downwards and connect it to this part of the cape over here on this right side of my paper. There's one more little fold of fabric here, also slightly shorter than this left side line. So over here by her hand, I'm going to add one more slightly swooped line, but I'm going to stop before I reach the bottom. So that way this piece is a little bit this piece is a little bit shorter. And I'm going to do kind of like a wavy line. And that's going to make it look like the fabric is flowing. So I'm going to move my pencil up and down, connecting it to that other piece. If you want, you can add some extra folds into your fabric for this cape. So I'm going to start with this line here. I'm going to start by the hand that's holding the cape, and I'm going to do a curved line that comes down and stops about halfway across her little cape. And then I'm going to do a bigger one right here that comes down, but then comes up and connects to that other hand. And you can add extra folds of fabric if you want to on your drawing. We're going to finish up with this bottom of her dress. It starts off with just a straight up and down line. So a little bit inwards from this edge, I want to start her little bottom of her skirt about right here. And I'm going to do a line that comes down at a slight angle and stops where I want that bottom of that skirt to be. So it's about the same length as that right side of the cape that came all the way down to the ground. And then I want to do a slightly curved line, kind of like a smile line, that kind of fits underneath this cape. So starting here on this left side, I'm going to create this curve that comes over and then connects under where that cape of hers would be. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add in some of these roses, and they're going to fill in this space here. You can do as many or as few roses as you want, and I just did simple circles. I'll break them down, but basically it's just a circle or half a circle for every rose that you want filling in that bottom part of her cape. So I'm going to draw curves to create the circle shapes for my roses. And right now I'm just doing the shape. I'll show you how to do the spirals in a second, but kind of just like little half circles for the bottom, however many or few you want. If you draw a lot, then you'll have to fill in a lot of spirals, but if you just do a couple, it'll fill in that part nicely. And I want them to have a little bit more detail, so I'm going to add a little spiral. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick a spot like the middle of your flower, and you're going to start to move your pencil around in a circular motion and kind of fill it in with just a little bit more detail. You can make it more detailed on your drawing if you want, but I'm just going to keep it simple. All right, so there's a look at my roses up close with the spirals all filled in. We're going to finish up by putting in her little torso and waist. So trying to line it up with her shoulders, I'm going to imagine that her torso is kind of like right about here. So I'm going to add a little line coming inwards at a slight diagonal here on the left side, and one over here on the right side. And you can make that as wide or narrow as you need to. And once you get those lines put in, we're going to do a curved line, kind of like a smile, to finish off her waist. Depending on how many roses you have in your drawing, you might not be able to see her waist, but you can adjust it for your drawing. And if you can fit it, you're going to add the top part of her skirt. So I'm going to do a little line here on the left side and a little line here on the right side to kind of add in that bottom part of her waist where it transitions from her torso and waist to her skirt. Next, we're going to be working on her crown. So near the top of your oval, you're going to start off with a slightly curved line for the bottom of her crown. And on the edges, we're going to put in these slightly diagonal lines. So there's going to be one that comes up and towards the left a little bit, one that comes up and towards the right a little bit. And we're going to connect the tops of these together with a similar slightly curved line to make that top part of the crown. I added a couple circles on the top of the crown, one in the middle and one on either side. But if you want to add more decorations to your crown, or maybe you want to even do a different shape than what I showed you, feel free to make any changes. We can see a little bit of her white veil peeking out. So if you can see the top of your head, you can just kind of re-outline that line, or you can draw that in on your Saint Elizabeth of Hungary if you need to. We have this little white veil that she's wearing, so a little bit inside the bottom part of the crown, just a little bit, you're going to draw a line that comes downwards and stops at her shoulder, and another one kind of at the edge of the crown that comes downwards at a similar curve and stops a little bit lower. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're starting inside your crown just a little bit on this bottom and creating a line that curves downwards towards that shoulder, and a longer one starting at this bottom edge of the crown that curves downwards, but a little longer and a little bit lower. And because I no longer need these guidelines from the oval shape of my head, I can erase those from my crown and my veil if needed. The last details that we're going to work on are for her face. So I just did really simple circles for my eyes. I gave her little eyelashes. You can too if you want. But about the middle of this oval shape is where I'm going to line up her eyes. So I'm going to put 2 little circles to create the shape of her eyes. And I'm going to add 2 little lines on each side for her eyelashes. In between her eyes and the bottom of her oval head, right in the middle, that's where I'm going to put my nose. I'm going to do a slightly curved line, like that. And I'm going to do a simple smile line in between her nose and her chin, right about the middle, for her smiling mouth. And above her eyes, I'm going to add 2 downwards turned lines for her eyebrows. And unless there's any other details that you want to add to your drawing that I didn't show you, maybe like a halo or a background, feel free to make any additions, and then we're going to color our artwork. So when I do my drawings, I love to outline them with pens like these because that's what looks good with markers. And I like to use markers because that's what shows up well on camera. You, of course, can make any changes that you want to your artwork before you color, and I'll turn up some music and we'll get back together in a little bit. Thank you so much for following along. I'd love to see how your drawings turned out. Feel free to tag me on social media, and know that I post new Catholic-inspired art tutorials here on my channel every month. If you'd like to support the channel, I'll include some links in the description, and I want to remind you that you are loved. God loves you very much, and He loves your artwork very much. Thanks so much for drawing along, and I'll see you in the next video.